That's right, it's Beaufort County's House of Cards. Special guest co-host here with his papa. Say hi to Maverick, everybody. Say hi. Tell everybody you stay safe. He is ham. He is all ham. I am the one of nine. This is the number one song requested this week on Big Picture Radio. Bad Company from right here on Big Picture Radio, powered by United Digital Promotions. And say hi, Maverick. Say hi. You gonna wink? Say hey, everybody. Yeah, there you go. It is Thursday night. Look at that. We got people chiming in from all over the place. They're from all over the area. All right. That's the number 9 grandson. And when you come over and see Pop and Mimi on Thursday night, sometimes you get to go past your bedtime and listen into the show. So glad to have you, everybody. Welcome in. A little bit different thing. I have some speakers in here, so I'm trying something new with without the headset. Just to see how I like it, how it flows and all that. But glad to have you in here. It is straight up 5 minutes after 7, straight up 7 o'clock here on the East Coast. We have a couple folks tuning in from out west in New Mexico. Still playing a lot of music for the folks in Gallup, New Mexico, where it is only 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So welcome in. Wherever you're watching, whether it be on Facebook, on Twitter, on YouTube, or even Twitch, we're glad to have you. And whether you're watching now or you tune in later, watch the videos off of YouTube or wherever, however you do it, we're glad to have you. Tonight's audio broadcast will be played next week on BigPatriotRadio.com at 7 p.m. Just like right now, as we hear the thunder roll, the folks that are over there on Big Patriot Radio are listening to this past Monday's show. So that's how we roll here at Big Patriot Radio. It is about to rain here in the studio, and we're glad to have everybody here tonight. Big night, a lot of stuff going on, a lot of news out there, of course, locally, nationally. Been in touch with some folks around the country today, specifically up in the Northeast, and try to get some of them to come on. There's a little bit of hesitance. I understand. You'll understand here in a little bit. We'll go into that story and more. But first, don't forget, you can chat. You can chat away here at Beaufort County's House of Cards. Just go into the chat bar of whatever program you're in and sound off. You want to say something, tell us something, request something. You want to get, you're pissed off, you want to tell me about it, tell me about it. I can't promise that we can do anything or even acknowledge it, but at least it gets it off your chest. So what the hell, right? So anyway, we're glad to have you here. We do ask, hey, if you can, this is free. It's free for you to tune in. Big Patriot Radio is free, but it's not free to produce. We would love to have your help. One way to do that is patreon.com/Beaufort House of Cards. You can make a one-time donation, or you can make a donation every month, a contribution of your choosing. Go to patreon.com/Beaufort House of Cards, and you too can be part of the family that is growing every single week here on both BigPatriotRadio.com and Beaufort County's House of Cards.
Introducing to you. You're on House of Cards, live on Facebook and YouTube. It's going down now. Locked and loaded with the truth.
That's right. You are locked and loaded with the truth here on Big Patriot Radio Networks. And this is House of Cards. We do have other podcasts on the radio every week. We've got the Overton Report on Monday nights. Wednesday nights, we have Al Flowers and Talk One Radio. A week in behind for House of Cards on Thursday. We have two shows now on Sunday. Two shows on Sunday from 7 o'clock to about 7:55. Culture Crossroads with Andrew Southwick is here. Two shows from 7:05 to 7:55. And immediately following it at the 8 o'clock hour, straight up 8 o'clock, our brand new show. We just signed these folks. It's Frank O'Freedenhour's Freedom Hour. That's right. Say that a few times if you can. That's Frank O'Freedenhour's Freedom Hour. That's all we know. That's all we know. You're going to be, it's quite the show for sure. So anyway, kicking things off, Dateline, Essex, Westford, Vermont. Where in the hell is Essex, Westford? Well, I'm glad you asked, because here's a, actually, you could see it if I did this the right way. Don't get ahead of myself. Let me share this with you. Let's go here, and we'll share the screen with you. Here is Essex Center, which is just northeast of Burlington, Vermont. Here you have in the blue and the fancy colored waves. That is the water between Vermont and New York State. And then there's Canada up in the corner. So this area in red, that is in that red circle, that is Essex Center, or Essex, what do they call it? Westford, Vermont. So there has been some news out of there, if you haven't heard about it. Parents and citizens alike are outraged, absolutely outraged, there as letters have gone home to fifth grade parents, informing them that last week, that boy, quote unquote, boy and girl, the moniker or the title, if you will, boy and girl, would no longer be acceptable in their school system. Rather, they will change it, and these won't be accepted nor allowed. Okay, so they have decided that what they will allow is the following: a boy is only able to be called, allowed to be called, person who produces sperm, and girls will only be allowed to be called person who produces eggs. That's right. These must be some of the most ridiculous people on the face of the earth to think this is appropriate. But let's go further. The school district noted, and I quote, "It is time for our science and health unit about the human body focused on puberty and the human reproductive systems in an effort, oh, how thoughtful, in an effort to align our curriculum with our equity policy, teachers will be using gender inclusive language. Are you freaking kidding me? This is obviously blatant, and like I said, obvious SEL grooming. SEL, you know, equity and the whole feeling safe thing. That is exactly what the school system and these fifth grade, teachers, leaders, administrators, they've said it's all part of their equity and being able to feel safe. We don't want you to have to call the boys boy. No, they should be called Johnny, the person who produces sperm. You should come back over here. How ridiculous. How ridiculous. Cindy, if you want to go to the person who produces eggs bathroom, that's on the left. No, we're not totally fucking the minds up of our children. No. There's more. There's more. For any confused humans or even furries, and this is a thing. If you didn't know about it, this is a thing now. Furries. Some classrooms in America have what do they call them? What do cats use? Litter box. Litter box. Some classrooms are putting litter boxes in their classroom because some kids feel that they are a furry. Unreal. Julianne, at least they're acknowledging what male and female bodies do. Yeah, that's true. That's one side of it. But, I think we should call them boys and girls for what they are. They're boys, girls, they're males, females. They're not person who produces sperm, person who produces eggs. These are fifth graders. If you want to screw with the head of a senior in high school, and they'll get a kick out of it, I'm sure. Okay. Avi, thanks for tuning in. Prove there are only two genders. Well, you know what? They're talking about this as sexual reproduction. So I don't know. When it comes to these whack-a-mole socialist Marxist type, I don't presume anything. I don't presume anything because they will. Well, you just never know. I mean, they never cease to amaze me. It's a race to the bottom of Stupidville. It's a race to the bottom of Stupidville. Anyway, sex is not assigned. I read this somewhere. Somebody had quoted this today in trying to reach out to some of the folks there in Vermont. They said, sex is not assigned at birth. It is observed. So and when you think about that for a second, baby comes out of womb. The baby has a penis. You have observed you gave birth to a boy. For all of you folks on the far left side, and I'm sorry for going into labeling politics, but you started it. You started it, baby. So for all of you who think that that's not fair, you shouldn't assign that because they have to decide. No, we've talked about this before. We've been down this road. Baby comes out, baby has a vagina. They are a female. They are a girl. Further down the line, if you decide as a parent you want to give that child a sex change, not gender affirming, that's bullshit, a sex change, they will still be a girl. You've just totally confused them and messed them up for life. Now, if you're listening, and for some reason somebody has said, hey, to my leftist neighbor, you ought to tune in and watch this guy. He's a riot. And you're infuriated right now. I really don't want to debate this because you're wrong. You're flat out wrong. You can't convince me. There's no sense in trying to convince me because you're only going to drive that bus to Idiotville even faster. The school district in Essex, Westford, Vermont, what they're doing is taking biology out of the biology. That's right. They are taking biology out of biology. Unbelievable. Just totally unbelievable. We've reached out to a couple folks. It's been late. They may not have gotten it. We have asked some folks to come on here, just like the guy in New York. We want to get that guy on that spoke at the school board. I'd like to get somebody, and I don't care what their venue is, if they're for it or against it, or hey, how about both? Love to have them on here at Beaufort County's House of Cards. That would be fun. I would love to hear from someone who thinks like me from there. Exactly what are you going through and how are you not becoming apoplectic when you are awake? And actually, now that I think about it, I'd love to hear from someone in Vermont that actually thinks this is appropriate, because I would love to record that and I'll make them famous. I will help them become famous.
Locked and loaded.
Let's go.
Big Patriot Radio. Blues, news, country pop, and classic rock.
20 minutes after 7 o'clock here on the East Coast. Call your local, we were talking about it earlier, call your local liberal, your socialist, your Marxist friend, neighbor, or closest enemy, and have them listen up. They're going to want to listen up to this. And speaking of that, since we're kind of doing a test run, let me know if the sound is any different. If it's better or worse than it is usually, just so I kind of know how we're doing with these speakers. It's just kind of weird. I'm hearing myself bounce around. So anyway, call them and let them know you got to tune in, because quite frankly, I got a feeling someone's head is about to explode. So let's go to the State House right now. And I'm going to reference to State House Bill 3826. So while everybody is looking up 3826, and there you hear him in the background doing so, this bill is also known. Thank you. Oh, wow. Thank you, Julian. Well, that's awesome. If it's better for you, it's better for me. That's why I look at it. This bill is known as the, quote, Protection of Minors from Pornography and Obscenities Act. A lot of us have been talking about this. A lot of folks around the state have been talking about it. This act amends the definitions of harmful to minors and material to include any portion of materials. Thanks, Mom. Well, sound is good. Awesome. To include any portion of materials and performances that may be considered obscene, and to define the term profane language. It also amends and addresses the offenses of disseminating harmful material to minors and exhibiting harmful performances to minors, defenses and penalties so as to limit the affirmative defense only to the teaching of age-appropriate sex education and human biology curriculum. What does all that mean? Well, I'm glad you asked. First of all, a little background. This bill was introduced by a friend of mine, Mark Smith. He is a funeral director out of Mount Pleasant, I believe it is. Now he's expanded even to Columbia. So anyway, Mark Smith introduced this bill January 26, 2023. That's when it was introduced. There was a Scrivener error. They corrected it that day. It was assigned committee that day, which is the judiciary, and Scrooge, pump the brakes. That's where it still sits. It is still in judiciary. April 27th. That is 91 days hence. What in the ever-loving grace is going on? Committee chair of this, of the judiciary, very, very powerful, one of the top two most powerful committees in the State House of Representatives is Beaufort County Republican Weston Newton. I reached out to Representative Chairman Newton. I did talk with him, and the bill, according to Chairman Newton, and let me give you, just so I don't misquote him, I want to tell you something that he said. Currently, there are 450 bills. This is what he said. There are 450 bills, and I'm assuming he meant per session, assigned to the judiciary. Only you have to understand that they all can't come through at the same time. Now, for those of us here in Beaufort County, what we should expect, what we should bear witness that we expect, because this is what they sold to us, we should expect from our representatives and our senators, because they've now gotten so much leverage, we'll say, in the State House. We should expect that our bills, or ones that are important to us in Beaufort County, should go faster. That's if somebody out there surely is saying, no, that ain't fair. It should go no. Fair politics don't work. That's why the longevity, why the hierarchy, why the placement in the House and the Senate is so important, because he who has rank gets things done. Let's give you an example of that. Now passed away, former Senate pro tem, because he didn't want to be president, he wanted to be finance chair, Hugh Leatherman, who was in the Senate in the South Carolina for, I don't know, 150 years or something. The head of the finance committee. That and the judiciary are the top two committees in the Senate. Now, there's a lot of things have been said about Senator Leatherman, God rest his soul. Some of them by me. I'm not going to rehash that. I will say that things in Florence County got done. Let's just leave it at that. Okay? Things in Florence County got done. When all of our representatives were clamoring, hey, vote for me, vote for me, vote for me, send me back. We got to do this, Beaufort. We got to do this, Beaufort. Send me back. We're going to get more power. We're in control. People check that box. They signed that ticket. You've got Weston Newton, chairman of the Judiciary Committee. You've got Shannon Erickson, chairman of the Education Committee. Jeff Bradley, I think he's chairman of the Rules Committee or something like that. Bill Herb Kurzman is the chairman of a Ways and Means subcommittee, I believe it is. Very influential. On the Senate side, Tom Davis is chairman of the LCI. That's like a number 3 most important Labor, Commerce, and Industry Committee. Margie Bright Matthews, representing Beaufort and Jasper and Colleton. She doesn't do anything. Rivers, he's not chair, and the rest of them don't matter. They're not on anything. But now, since they're there, we should expect these things to go through. So back to 3826. I reached out to Mark Smith. I said, hey, buddy, haven't seen you since the Nancy Mace days. How's it going? Good. On the floor, arguing. Hey, Bo, what's going on with 3826? You introduced it, but it's set there. You'd have to talk to your neighbor, Weston Newton. Okay, Mark. Well, I did. Chairman Newton said, hey, it's in the hopper. It's been assigned to subcommittee. He said, this is a two-year session. It's already gone through into getting a subcommittee. It will be first out of the gate as we go into next year. I did tell him, and he obviously understood that, it's important to me and to the folks that I represent, that this get through. And he understands it. He said that he understands it. And I respect him for what he told me. And you can either like that or not. So let's talk about this bill. What is this bill all about? This bill is crucial for parents that fight for their children. It's crucial for children, even though they don't know it. It's crucial for children so they become responsible adults. They become not totally screwed up in the head, as America is going. When we started this crusade, that I'll call it, about the all the books and all this stuff, we identified several words and phrases that weren't clearly defined in state law. Fair enough. this bill, along with 4 or 5 others that have just been introduced, and I think they were all introduced recently, like 2 weeks ago or a week ago, by Representative Beach and Representative Rob Smith, I believe it was, both of them, Freedom Caucus members. This bill, those 4 or 5, and a couple of those that are mingling around in the Senate right now, not only has the meat to it, if you will, but it clarifies definitions. Okay, I've been talking with folks from all over the state, all over the area, in different states about the legislative process, and here's how I'm going to put it. When you think about this, and when I say this crusade, this is what I mean. The subjects that matter: books in libraries, pornography in libraries, in school, obscenities in libraries and school, and reading material and plays and performances, transgenderism being pushed by teachers, librarians, books, etc. in the schools, sex changes. I'm not going to call them gender affirming because that's horseshit. It's sex change. Drag queen shows being pushed into schools or being pushed onto children being present. So a man with a beard or a goatee that's dressed up like RuPaul can wag his tail because that's funny. All of these things are like layers. If you took an onion and you started peeling the layers back, normally when we talk, we say, well, let's peel the layers back of the onion and see what's inside. Well, this one is the onion is all peeled. And all those things I just said, let's put all those layers, all of those are a layer, put them all back, and now you have a whole onion. Because all of these things, ironically, all are part of the same problem. When you think about it, these are all part of the same problem. From the obscenities in books and that group crying about it, and they're not getting 100% of their way. So now all of a sudden we're going to go down the transgenderism roll. Well, that's not getting all the traction. So we're going to go down the drag queen roll. That's not getting all the traction. So we got to allow kids to become dogs and furry bats with Chinese oriental eyes or whatever. They're going to throw it all. It's all a layer of that onion. As we see it materialize, those peels, the onion peels, come back. It would be euphoric for some to have one bill. Many folks that are listening that I've talked to would prefer to have just one bill with all this stuff in it. That is euphoria. That's nirvana, I guess you could call it, addressing all of the concerns that we laid out above and that we've been talking about for weeks. But folks, that is not reality. That's not reality on something this large. If you're trying to change the laws on the amount of cobia that are caught up to 1 mile offshore and inshore, and there's an amendment to add, you can only do it on, non-gas powered boats. And I'm thinking way outside the box. That can be done in one bill. This stuff, this is not one bill eligible. You can't do it. You cannot do it. As these bills get passed, and I want you to follow with me here, as these bills go through and get passed or killed, that's possible too, they'll get amended, stuff taken out, stuff put in, stuff taken out, stuff put in. That's how this works. That's why there are so many of these, because what gets taken out here may be put in here. You have heard politicians say, well, that same subject, X, was in the bill we talked about 2 weeks ago. Yeah, dipshit, because it was taken out here, we're going to put it in here. That's how the game works. I want you all to know how this game works, so you're not surprised when you hear politicians say these things, and I know what you're saying by not saying it. That's what I hope to get out of this. So anyway, as these bills get passed or killed, the ones that follow either add substance or take away and get removed. Hopefully the end result is that what we've been waiting for all along, and that is that euphoric one bill. Don't be disillusioned to think on either side of the aisle that you're going to get that perfect bill. That generally doesn't happen. Bills are amended and changed year after year after year. I was telling Ivy the other day, we were talking about this, and I said, hey, I would prefer, if I was a state house rep or a state senator, I would be more interested in either removing legislation or removing bills, removing taxes that have been burdened on people and businesses. I'd be more interested in that, or changing what's already there better for the people, than I would be interested in adding something new. Today, as a matter of fact, there was it wasn't a perfunctory session, but it was close to it. There were several bills, and I think Shannon Erickson even introduced them. They were so, and I don't know that they were her bills, so don't get me wrong, but they were so stupid. I mean, they were dumb. They were like, this is a bill to make sure that all tract homes have brass colored doorknobs. I mean, it was stupid shit like that. It made no sense, but whatever. For those, I do want to say this, and all of a sudden our people watching just went way through the roof. So I hope somebody told somebody something, because now I want to address those folks who have targeted me, or folks like me, or folks that are on here, or who have been at school board meetings, or whatever. And targeted with this comment, quote, "You don't care about the professional. You don't care about the training of teachers and librarians. You people just don't care." So my responses to them for a long time have been and continue to be the following. Number one, teachers are hired to teach. They're hired to teach from a curriculum that has been approved, and they are told to teach from said curriculum. They're not hired to raise our children. If they have their own, they need to raise their own children. They're not hired to raise our children. They are not hired for their personal feelings, nor their personal beliefs. Now, again, I'm talking about public schools. I'm not talking about private schools, parochial schools. I'm not talking about any of that. I'm talking about public taxpayer dollars, taxpayer funded schools. Teachers aren't hired for their feelings, for their personal beliefs, for any of that. They are hired to teach a curriculum that they have been given, that has been approved. They've been told, do this. This is your job. Number two, librarians are not hired for any personal opinions, beliefs, or traditions. Now, back in my day, librarians were these older, I'm from Virginia, so they're older Southern women, and some of them weren't never married. They were bookworms, and they never said a word other than, can I have your library card? Or you ask them what the Dewey Decimal System is, and they have to tell you again. Librarians that's what a librarian was. It was a non-eventful thing. You didn't go interaction with the librarian because they were librarians. Now, apparently, we've got librarians who think they are the doctor of children's philosophy, and they have supreme control over what your child reads. So let me rephrase this. Librarians are not hired for any personal opinions, beliefs, or traditions. None. Period. They are employed by the taxpayer. That's right. So somebody call up one of these librarians who's been so vocal about what we've been doing. Call them up and tell them, you need to listen to this. because it's true. Librarians, I'm talking to you right now. I'm talking to you. You're employed by the taxpayer. Yes, you answer to the school district and the school principal and eventually, obviously, the superintendent. You're hired by us, okay? You're hired by us. You're employed by the taxpayer to help people find information and conduct research for projects and assignments. That's what a librarian does. So I want to take that a little bit further. So I started investigating, maybe things are different now. It is the 21st century. I grew up when it was, we didn't have computers. We had cell phones. We didn't have fax machines. So maybe, I said to myself, maybe librarians do more now. So I looked it up. And I found the 5 duties of the modern school librarian, according to 2 bunches of people or groups called the ALA and the AASL. I don't want to know who they are because I got a feeling that it's a left-funded, Soros-funded kind of thing that I'm not even interested in. But it's interesting to hear what these 5 things are. Acquiring new materials and resources. That's one of the things a librarian is for. Side note, with what's going on here and around the country, acquiring new materials and resources. That tells me that the librarians, unless your school system is different, Mr. and Mrs. America, the librarians have a say on what books go in there. Interesting. 2, helping students and faculty. Makes sense. That's what I said earlier. Number 3, using and teaching technology. Really makes sense because I mentioned Dewey Decimal System, and only if you're over 40 do you even know what that means. So you have to use technology or you won't be able to find the books, I guess. So that makes sense. I agree. Number 4, recruiting new employees. Supposedly that's a thing that librarians are supposed to do. I don't know if that's because they don't have a lot to do. I don't know. Maybe that's a thing in some school districts. Maybe it's not in Beaufort County School District. I don't know. I found it very interesting. And last, evaluate sources. Oh, wait a minute. That's right, Ivy. Now they're activists. They're evaluating sources. If you go back to number 1, acquiring new materials and resources, and number 5, evaluate sources. Now, the ALA and the AASL have just given directives that squarely puts the ability of a librarian who may be an activist, a whatever, a left activist, a right activist, a whatever activist. They've got total control, according to the ALA and the AASL. It's not healthy. It's dangerous to have someone, and again, it doesn't matter if you're far to the left or far to the right. You're not hired for that. We don't, all librarians, God, I wish you could hear me, because we don't care what your political beliefs are. We don't care. We citizens, parents, grandparents, we don't care what your religious beliefs are. We don't care what your gender beliefs are. We don't care. You do you and leave our children alone. We will raise them. You do those things, those 5 things I just mentioned, and collect your paycheck, and life will be fine. You won't have to hear from people like me or people like Ivy or David or Joe or Julianne or anybody else. You won't have to hear from us because you're doing your job. You're being a librarian or a media specialist, not a groomer or an indoctrinationalist or a whatever the hell they call now. So 2 of these items that I just mentioned put a lot of onus on them for acquiring and receiving information. Pretty much what I just said. I think everybody understands that. Those librarians who have been numerous, let me tell you, and some of you can vouch for that. who have been numerous that have spoken publicly in favor of 100% of the 97 books that we asked to be removed. 100%, they want them all back. They want them all back in total general population or general circulation. I guess population would be part of, I guess, a prison thing. So general circulation. Okay, that's what some of these librarians want. They should all go back. No exceptions. They should all be on the shelves for us all to enjoy. All fifth graders should be. Let me keep going. Those librarians that are saying that are in clear, crystal clear violation of their duty and have introduced personal beliefs into the public school system. Should they all have a come to Jesus meeting, as I like to call them, with the superintendent? Abso-friggin-lutely. Why has it not happened? If the answer to that is yes, if the superintendent and the librarians want to keep their jobs. Oh man, don't fire people. No, we're beyond that. We're beyond that. If you continue the route that you're going, and I'm speaking to Beaufort County Superintendent, who was a friend of mine, but I'm speaking right to you. I'm speaking to every librarian. If you want to keep your job, then the superintendent and the librarians need to have this come to Jesus meeting that I call. Should the librarians in violation, obvious violation, be terminated? Folks, if they can't control their personal beliefs, if they can't control their personal feelings, if they can't control, if they're not adult enough to control themselves, then by God, they should be fired, and they should have been fired yesterday. Well, you're going to fire all the librarians. Okay, fire them all. If that's what it means, then fire them all. There's other people out there looking for a job. I'll fill in one day. If you can't contain yourself, and this is for teachers, librarians, if it's unimaginable that you contain yourself, keeping your personal beliefs at home, keeping your personal challenges at home, keeping your sexual afflictions at home, you have no business being in a public school, period. And you can quote me on that. Now, to those who say, I don't support the teachers, you need to grow up. I'll be as nice as I can about that. You need to grow up. When I was on county council, while having zero authority over any school issues except their budget, that was the only thing we had authority over, was to agree to the millage rate of the school system's operating budget. I voted in favor of every single teacher pay raise line item, is what I'm going for there. Line item pay raise. I voted in favor of every single, they had these like $2,500 stimulus or a one-time retention bonus, or I think it was like $7,500 paid $2,500 at a time for merit or longevity or whatever. Every single one I voted in favor of. Now, I did vote against every single school board budget because the superintendent and the treasurer or the CFO or whatever her title is consistently presented each time with more spending and zero cost cutting. And I made it perfectly clear that I was not going to support continued hike in millage rate when nothing was being cut. No waste was being cut. It was spend. Then you've, not to go on a tangent, but Stu Rodman said, well, let's just vote for the same millage rate from last year, and then we'll address it in September. He did that twice. September came, nobody talked about it. The millage rate went up. Research it for yourself. Prove me wrong. I know it happened. I watched it. I called him out on it. I called Stu the snake out. Anyway, that's what happens when you continue to let personalities, personal afflictions, personal beliefs, whatever, when you let that enter the school system, when you let that enter the school teaching arena, when you let that enter the school library, it's time to get rid of it. We don't have enough teachers. We'll find a way. We'll find a way. Not having that influencing our children is more important than having a plethora of teachers. Yeah, that's right. I'm getting raw about it because this is raw. Kids are getting damaged. They're getting damaged in East Westford, Vermont. They're getting damaged in Biloxi, Mississippi. They're getting damaged in Corbin, Kentucky. They're getting damaged in Loudoun County, Virginia. And they have been getting damaged in Beaufort County, South Carolina. And it's got to stop now.
Locked and loaded.
Let's go.
Big Patriot Radio. Blues, news, country pop, and classic rock.
Changing gears a little bit, former governor and now president of the United States, POTUS hopeful Nikki Haley, is now apparently beginning her attacks on Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. Don't forget, folks, please chime in. We had a lot of folks on that last segment. Love it. Keep it coming. Tell people to get on here. Make a contribution if you can to the crawler. Give us your chat. Let us know what's going on. Anyway, just yesterday, Nikki Haley spoke out to Disney, supposedly, and she said that South Carolina would gladly, happily, whatever she said, accept their 70,000 jobs if they wanted to leave Florida. And oh, by the way, South Carolina was not, quote unquote, sanctimonious either, and that was an apparent attack on DeSantis. I found that a little funny. Ron DeSantis hasn't claimed that he's running for president. I think he will. She's spending money already attacking him. I think it's a little juvenile. I mean, it's what is it, April 27th? It's a little early for that, Nikki. You don't need to go there yet. You need to build yourself up. Build yourself up. Why should they vote for Nikki? Not why should you not vote for Ron DeSantis? Because if I'm Ron DeSantis, I'm loving that shit because I'm going to nail your ass to the TV screen. Just wait. So in an interview, I think it was Fox Television, Haley referred to, at one time, it was yesterday, she made South Carolina an economic powerhouse. A lot of pundits said what I'm getting ready to say. And I kind of went, let me think about that a second. I don't know ever that South Carolina has been an economic powerhouse. I think quite the opposite. I mean, we do good things. We give industry breaks, and public is giving them a lot of money to bring those industries here, but we're not a powerhouse. I wouldn't go quite that far, Nikki. We're not a powerhouse. We're okay. We're doing good. It's a great place. Powerhouse? I don't know if I'd go quite that far. On the Haley topic again, and I've sat down with former Governor Haley. Ambassador Haley. I have sat down with her before. I have had dinner at her table before when running for Congress. She is a firecracker. I'll give her that. She is a firecracker, much like some local folks that I know. I mean, she's a Clemson, go Tigers. She is through and through. She is South Carolina 110%. Nobody is a bigger champion and cheerleader for South Carolina than Nikki Haley. I think that's probably everyone will agree. Even those who oppose her would still say she's a cheerleader. She's great at that. But I don't think she's in play for role of president. I really don't. Those of you who are Haley fans are just getting bent, and that's okay. That's fine. I don't think she's really in that for the long game. Vice president, absolutely, absolutely, and there's a legitimate course for that. Mainly due to her time at the United Nations, very well respected around the world. I could see her as a number 2 on a ticket. Absolutely. Absolutely. Would not shock me in the least. And I really think that's what she's playing for. That is her long game, is a VP role, not a presidential role. She's just not ready for that. But while we're on the topic of presidential hopefuls, Tim Scott, Senator Tim Scott, another South Carolinian, he has not officially, quote unquote, entered the race, but after watching a couple of interviews with him recently, I would place a heavy bet. If I had a couple extra nickels, I would place a heavy bet that Tim Scott will jump in this race. Tim Scott, you either love him or you don't. I have met with Tim Scott. I have sat down. I had breakfast with Tim Scott. Super nice guy. His story is fantastic. It's touching. His mother, the whole thing. It's very touching. He's a genuine guy. He's not presidential yet. There are still some things that need to be done, that he needs to fix, that he needs to come out with and repair. And my wife right there with the absolute wisdom, it's all about the money. Does he have enough? I couldn't have said it better myself. That's why I married her. I married up. She's so smart. And that's right. He doesn't. He's got a good war chest. I think last time I checked, he had about $10 million. Lindsey Graham, for example, has got right at $15 million. 8 to 10 million is what Tim Scott had. Now, I'm sure he's raised more money since then. He hasn't raised presidential race money. And Tim Scott does not have any name recognition west of the Mississippi River. That will play, when he continues this tour of the country. If he goes out, and I hope he goes out west, and he pays time in Arizona and California and Wyoming and New Mexico and Texas, I really believe he's going to see. I just don't have the name recognition, and I don't have anywhere near the money. You've got one guy, President Donald J. Trump. I don't know I haven't looked at his, but was it last time he raised $100 million? That's serious coin. I mean, when I ran for Congress, once we saw that the financial folks in my team saw that Nancy Mace had fundraised to a point that would be impossible to eclipse, why continue throwing good money after bad? It doesn't make sense. That would be financial. That would be a ridiculous way to continue with your money that you gave to me to continue to run, knowing I can't outrun her. And that's what it is about, is the money. That's not everything. Somebody's getting ready to type it. Don't type it. I know. But that is the largest part. He who has the most coin will win. That was Congress. But anyway, talking about presidential races. Former governor of Arkansas, Oza, however you say it, Hutchinson. He is running. I don't see that lasting very long. I don't know how much money he's got. I don't see that lasting very long at all. I think that's, I don't know the guy. It doesn't mean anything to me. So, who's left? Obviously, Trump is in this game. And all signs say that he's going to stay in this game. I expect him to stay in this game. He's going to be fundraising like crazy in this game. Every time somebody steps on their wee-wees, Trump is going to raise more money. DeSantis was way up, and now he started to come down. I don't remember exactly what happened. There's so many things. He'll overcome that, and he'll start raising more money. Who else may jump in? There is another businessman. His name is Vivek Ramaswamy. 37-year-old CEO and finance guru. He's got a niche following, very well spoken. Some of the stuff he says makes perfect sense. A lot of what he says makes me scratch my head. He's got practically zero national profile. So unless he can raise $100 million and just have a media blitz to get his name, which I do not see that happening, that is not a wise business decision, I think he's going to fall away. Mike Pence, rumored as a possible candidate. God help us. God help us. Chris Sununu, governor of New Hampshire. If he jumps in, Chris Sununu will be 120% anti-Trump. He's pretty much already said that. If you listen to what he says and look between the lines at what he writes and things, he has little to offer. But he has little to offer. Probably the worst thing is that he's out of touch with the GOP base on social issues, and this is my opinion. So he may have some fiscal things that people resonate with. Socially, I think the GOP base, is going to stay away, and Chris Sununu really doesn't have a cold chance in hell. Chris Christie, whose pants are still eating his stomach. Chris Christie has been so anti-Trump that he's going to have a hard time overcoming that with whatever base is left. Back in the day when he first was getting involved, when he was still governor of New Jersey, except for the bridge scandal, I mean, a lot of stuff he said was, made somewhat sense, even though I never trusted the guy. But he went full on anti-Trump, and the base, the numbers won't handle it. They won't support it. It would be a exercise in futility. Kristi Noem, the governor of South Dakota, has been rumored to be a possible candidate. She says, no way, I'm a South Dakota governor. That just means I'm looking at it. She's a star, and she's a rising star, even more so. A lot of good stuff out of Kristi Noem's mouth. A lot of good things happen in South Dakota. If she could raise $50 million, she may have a shot. She's on a flyover state, middle of the road, well known. During the Trump years, she's not gone anti-Trump, so the base is going to be okay with her there. I think she sounds like she would be the type that would say, this is what I have to offer, not how much you suck. I think that's going to be the person that may end up being the nominee, is that person who comes out ahead and says, this is why I'm better, not that they suck. Who else? Liz Cheney. Oh my God. Whew. Yeah, I won't say any more about that. John Bolton, former national security advisor, been rumored to be a possible candidate. He's a smart fucker. Let me tell you, guy is smart. Foreign intelligence officer. He's an expert. However, the GOP base cannot stand him. He went, again, another one who went full on anti-Trump. And that rhetoric is going to kill these people. They can't do that. They've got to stop that. Again, listen to me. Make it about you, why you are so good, not why they're so bad. So, folks, where we are is that Trump and DeSantis are right now far ahead of anyone else. And it seems like Biden's favorability, oddly enough, has actually inched up a couple of points, which is strange because, Biden, Joe and the Ho, as I like to call them, Biden and Kamala just, let it out that, yes, we're going to run again. I don't look at that as Biden running for president, because you need to look what's behind him. Biden's going to be, 80 some odd years old. more than likely, not wishing any harm on anybody, but more than likely he won't last. That means Kamala Harris, God help us, would be president of the United States. That would be a complete disaster. The only thing worse would be, what's her name, Pelosi, or any of her crew, but we don't have to worry about that. Kamala Harris as president should scare the living hell out of all of you. Democrats and Republicans. Actually, forget the Republicans. We already know you don't want her. But those Democrats that are watching, I'm telling you, I talked to a lot of Democrats in like Colleton, Hampton County, Jasper County. They're like, look, not only do we not like Senator Margie Bright Matthews because she doesn't do anything for us, Kamala Harris makes us look bad. Why do you want to vote for someone that makes you look bad? Yeah. So anyway, what my recommendation is for the GOP, okay, Ronna, whatever your name is, you and Tweedledee McKissass, your number 2 guy, you better get your shit together. You better get your shit together. 2024 is coming.
Introducing to you. You're on House of Cards. Live on Facebook and YouTube. It's going down. Locked and loaded with the truth.
Straight up 8 o'clock here on the East Coast, 5 o'clock West Coast. If you saw the post online prior to the show, you probably saw where it said if you're an anti-George Washington person, then you're anti-American. And I mean that. I mean that wholeheartedly. Well, what do you mean about that? Well, here you go. So apparently in Charleston County, their county council, not city council, that's led by Chairman Mouse Tecklenburg. I'm talking about Charleston County Council, specifically Councilman and former GOP County Chair in Charleston, Larry Kabrovsky, say that 5 times, recently was trying to pass a resolution honoring George Washington. What's the big deal? George Washington. I gave a little history lesson on him last week, you might remember. I had a couple of people say that was pretty cool. They never heard that. The father of the country. We are about to celebrate the 250th anniversary of the American Revolution. Did you know that? Did you know that 250 years ago, the American Revolution happened? Well, Larry K., as I'm going to call him, Larry K., Councilman Larry K., could not get a second to the motion originally. Then he did. Then it went into discussion. And then you had Councilman Kylon Middleton. He took objection to a one-liner or a one-paragraph statement in Larry Kabrovsky's motion for a resolution. He took exception and objection when it referenced slavery. Now, Kabrovsky did admit, he said, when I wrote this resolution, that was not in there. A staffer put that in there, and he said, I did not proofread it. My bad. I bet you don't do that again, Larry. What's it with these people not reading their damn bills and resolutions? It freaking bugs the hell out of me. So they debated over this. Larry amended it. He said, hey, I'll amend it. I'll take that out because I didn't have it in there. I'll take it out. And he had it removed. There was more discussion on all this, and that amounted basically to semantics. My question, because Councilman Middleton and another Democrat councilman, and I couldn't get his name, Councilman Middleton said, quote, we need to have that conversation about slavery. You know, you hear this a lot. We need to have that conversation sometime. Well, when are we going to have that conversation? You want to converse about it? Let's have the conversation. Talk about it. I'm okay with it. Let's talk. You hear that so many times from Democrats, especially Democrats, people of color will come out and say, we need to have that discussion about slavery. All right, let's have it. It's 2023, for God's sakes. Let's finally have the conversation. When are we going to do that? So, and I had mentioned this earlier. I said, Kylon, hello. I hear that all the time, but I never hear him or any other Democrats actually say, let's have the conversation. They only ask, when are we going to have the conversation? So it's word salad. It's semantics. It doesn't mean anything. So Middleton wasn't satisfied in removing the added verbiage. No. As he kept talking about slave owners, he talked about slave owners everywhere. Middleton went on to say, I'm not supporting anyone who owns slaves. And Larry K started saying, so you don't support the father of this country because he owns slaves. So look, there are so many points here. There are so many points here. And I'm going to name them, even though those who are there, most folks, let me tell you, most folks are too scared. They're too scared to say what I'm going to say because they either don't understand or they're just afraid to do it, as the rain is really coming down now. One, if you have a problem with George Washington, the father of the country, who had the ability and he had the chance to become king, he said no, then you know what? Maybe you just need to move. Move to Cuba, move back to England, move to Canada, move to France, move to Germany, move wherever you want to. If you can't deal with George Washington, maybe this ain't the place for you. Slavery. Yes, George Washington owned slaves. Martha Washington owned slaves from, and I think it was like from her former marriage in the Curtis or Custis or however you say it, whatever, that family. And you know what? It's also well recorded that George Washington was not in favor of slavery. Slavery was part of the culture then. It was part of the African culture then. It is part of the Chinese culture now. It's part of the Indian culture now. It's part of cultures in Africa now. But we don't want to talk about that. All people, when you look at it, all people of power and money and status owned slaves. Number three, slavery began centuries ago. Do the research. Look it up. You'll do honest, close the door. Don't get on Facebook. Honestly, look it up yourself. Look it up in multiple places. Began centuries ago. That was part of the culture of the time. As time moved through it, all of our millennia, and you went from different, crusades to this time to, before Christ to after Christ to all of them. There was a part of life that things happened. That was the culture. It may be the culture in China or India right now. That's not the culture in America. Slavery is not our culture. Now, many people are still slaves in America. Don't get me wrong. You can be sex trafficked. You can be child trafficked. You can, all those things. That is part of slavery. Okay. Don't get me wrong. That's part of slavery. So it's here. It's here in Beaufort County. Now, we're talking about it on a different level, on that subject we don't want to talk about, but we're going to talk about it. Slavery began centuries and centuries ago. Did you know that even during the Revolutionary period, during the Civil War, from A to B, there were people of color in the states that actually owned slaves? They owned black slaves. That's right. There were people of color owning people of color. There were black folks owning black folks. There were white folks who owned black folks. Whatever you want to call it. Slavery, slavery. It doesn't know a color. And it happened. It happened. Not just Caucasian folks owned slaves. Okay? The Japanese were corralled by Americans at one time and kept in slave camps. Look at the Irish. Look at the Portuguese. These black slave owners that I have mentioned did so to gain economic status and actually have an interest, financial, in it. It's all about the money. It's not about the color of your skin. It ain't never been about the color of your skin. It's about the money. Don't you people understand that? It's about the money. Number 4, in Africa, there was a man named Tipu Tip. Tipu Tip. And I happen to have a picture of old Tipu Tip. I love that name, Tipu. Tipu Tip. Let's see if we can find him. Here it is right here. Tipu Tip. There he is. He was, his background, his ethnicity was Afro-Omani. So he was a black fella, black man from Oman. Okay, he was a Muslim. Lived 1832 to 1905. What did he do for a living? He was a slave trader. He owned he owned Africans. He owned black folks, and he is a man of color. He owned them. He traded them. He traded his fellow black male and female country men and women for Zanzibar's clove plantations. That's right. He traded people for the clove plantations in the country, what we call Zanzibar, or would have called. It's all about the money. It wasn't about the race. It was about the money. The means to his money came through selling his countrymen. I haven't heard anybody get bent out of shape and pissed off at Tipu II for selling their ancestors. Tipu is known around the world as not only the most, and look it up, he's known as the most well-known slave trader, but also he supplied more slaves around the world than anyone. Tell me that man did not have power. Tell me that man of color in Africa was not one of the most powerful people on the planet. You tell me that, I'll tell you you're wrong, because he was. He was. We have someone else that I want to introduce you to. And I just learned of, I had heard of Tipu II, didn't know much about him, but I had heard. But I just learned about this gal right here. Just learned about her. Her name is Nzinga of Ndongo and Matamba. Her name is Nzinga of Ndongo and Matamba. Why does that Disney movie come to mind? I want to sing the song. Nzinga of Ndongo and Matamba. Hey, Matamba. Maybe that's where that came from. I don't know. Anyway, her life was 1583 to 1663. She was a ruler. I mean, this gal right here, now she had cred. She was born into gold. She was a ruler in Africa in what we call present day known as Angola. All right. She was born to the throne with a gold fork. Very, very, very well educated. She became educated in the fine arts. She became educated, reading, writing, arithmetic. She became educated in military, and she became one of the most ruthless people in Africa during her lifetime. She defeated the Portuguese a couple of times, completely kicking their ass due to her having a stronghold on the world slave trade. She was black, she was royalty, and folks, every slave in Africa from 1583 to 1663, every single slave went through Nzinga, Ndongo, and Matamba. Tell me she didn't have power. She is or was power. Why hasn't anyone condemned them? Why? If you're going to condemn people, all right, condemn George Washington. Condemn them too. Hell, it started with them. I've said that all along. I'm like, wait a minute. I know, did all the boats, all the ships that came over, were they all, a bunch of drunk white guys from Lord knows where? No. Yeah, many were, but that doesn't matter because they were sold by, we just learned two of them. Tipu Tip from Oman and Nzinga Ndongo and Matamba. But let's get back to Charleston, okay? I digress. Charleston County Council supposedly now is conservative. They had a big change in February. Bullcrap. Bullcrap. None of the other GOP there, Larry Kubrovsky, Larry K is obviously former county chair. None of them, they owe the majority and none of them went to his bat. Oh, no. No. They were acolytes licking the heels, the bootlickers. That's what they were doing. None of them had the balls to support Larry K. None of them had the balls to support George freaking Washington. Now, they did align themselves with Middleton. In my opinion, they sold themselves out. Councilman Boykin, new to the show, supposedly a big GOP guy. Horse shit. That's total horse manure. So Councilman Boykin, if you ever get a hold of this, you're as bad as the Democrats, buddy. You've sold out. You're useless. You're worthless. You can't support Chairman or Councilman Larry K, and you can't support George freaking Washington. But wait a minute. Let's hear what Councilman Boykin had to say out loud. That's right. We have it right here. We're going to hear what Councilman Boykin had to say. Take a listen.
If people thought that wasn't historically accurate and leave the other part in.
This is Larry K talking right now.
Commemorating him as the commander-in-chief that won our freedom, was our first president, and had a historic visit to Charleston.
Right. You're right. Yes, sir, Mr. Boykin.
Mr. Kabrowski, I think, sorry.
We do have a motion on the floor. We don't have a second. Without a second, I don't think we should be having any discussion. So,
Mr. Boykin, can we allow Mr. Boykin?
yes, sir, Mr.
I'll be brief.
Mr. Boykin.
Mr. Kabrowski, I think your intentions are honorable. And I guess what I was going to try to say is that while many Americans see President Washington as the father of our country, I don't know that African Americans see George Washington as father of their country.
Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Hold the microphone. Boykin said, quote it, while many Americans see George Washington as the father of their country, I don't know if African Americans see George Washington as father of their country. He put the emphasis on there. Boykin, you're a sellout. Boykin, you are not an America First patriot, you are not a Republican with that kind of mentality. I cannot believe the people of Charleston were duped and you got on council. Andrew Boucher, the new Charleston County Republican Party chairman, if you're listening to this or somebody gets it to him, you need to do something to throw this shit stick out of there. This is absurd. All these county parties now are going to have all these rules that if you say something bad about the county party, we're going to kick you out. This idiot can't support George Washington because I don't know if African Americans see George Washington as father of their country. He emphasized their. Why did you do that, Boykin? Why did you say their country? What's your problem? What do you have against? They're not African Americans. Nobody that I know of. Maybe there is an African that moved here from an American that moved from Africa. So let's go with it. What's your problem with them? Their country. Isn't it not our country? Is it not all Americans' country? Or are you going to split us into our country and their country? Is that what it's about, Boykin? Charleston is arguably one of 5 of the most important places on earth in the Revolutionary War period. Washington was in Charleston in 1791. He spent more time here in Charleston than anywhere else on his famous southern tour, if you will. He traveled the South. May 1791, he spent a whole week and a day in Charleston. He took several boat rides, I'll call it boat rides, met with high-ranking South Carolinians, landowners, farmers, the governors, that not like McMaster, but governors of the areas anyway, military. He met with South Carolinians like the Pinckneys, the Rutledges, the Moultries, the Darts, and others. He visited with churches all through Charleston, city officials. There were feasts every single day for everyone. He walked the city streets of Charleston. He blessed the opening of the orphan house. It's a heralded place, the orphan house. And did I mention he had feasts every single day for people? There were feasts for people. 6 a.m. on May 9th, Washington said goodbye to Charleston and set out for Savannah with his entourage. But the Charleston County Council, GOP controlled now, is bowing down to the liberal Democrats who fantasize about euphoria and want to rewrite history when the truth obviously hurts their feelings. George Washington, the father of this country, if you're anti-George Washington, you are anti-American, point blank. I don't care if your feelings got hurt. Screw your feelings. This is America. George Washington, from chopping down the cherry tree, I cannot tell a lie, said he. We grew up pretty close to the same area. His boyhood home, Ferry Farm in Stafford County, Virginia. His home place in Mount Vernon. If you can't support George Washington, you are not an American patriot. I don't know what you are, but you probably need to live somewhere else.
Locked and loaded.
Let's go.
Big Patriot Radio. Blues, news, country pop, and classic rock.
Enough of that. There's going to be more. I can tell you the Overton Report will have more on this. We will as well. Moving on to the final segment of the night. It is about 8:30. Wow, where has time gone? If you have some things to say, now's the time to put it in your chat room. Let us know. Let us know. You've heard, this is probably if that didn't get you going, if your blood pressure isn't up now and you haven't downed a bottle of wine by now, you probably will after this. I can pretty much guarantee that.
Ready.
Yeah. So you've heard about the Pine Island land subject, the disaster that's going on in Beaufort County over in St. Helena. I mean, it's a laughing stock of what's been going on. It's just another corruption-filled backdoor dealing. I mean, it never seems to stop. So here's an update where they are right now. There's been charrettes, there's been, you know, public opinions, public hearings, all that kind of stuff. There was one last Monday. I don't even think it was on the agenda, but the CPO was. Anyway, people were up and talking, and you know, the property was purchased by a guy named Elvio Trapiano. He's from New York. He's like a hedge fund or a Wall Street guy or whatever, and he purchased this property. It was like 18 million bucks. Like that's jump change. Purchase this property. It's Pine Island. It's on St. Helena. You go through a dirt road like a viaduct. Boom, you're on Pine Island. 560 acres, something like that. I mean, it's got like 7.5 miles of deep water frontage. I mean, this is a nice piece of property. So it has a like everywhere. It already has zoning, and the zoning that's there now would allow him to build up to like 166 houses, 100 docks, something like that. Yes, you would have to have septics on all of them. You would have to have wells on all of them. DHEC would be up his ass forever. Yeah. He had a proposal, supposedly, to put a golf course on there and minimize the amount of houses. Well, people went batshit crazy over this and like, you're crazy. You know, they moved forward, meetings up and down the coast. Then he says, well, I'm going to put 3 6-hole golf courses. Oh my God, no, you can't do that. Then you get the Gullah Geechee people involved, which they should be. Queen Quet, who's like the chiefess of the Gullah Nation. And others get involved and they're talking and public speaking and blah, 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 blah. And, you know, meanwhile, this guy's spending money on, you know, lawyers and architects, and the county's involved in back and forth. That's kind of where they are right now. They're waiting on, you know, this final reading to know what the hell's going on. And everybody's kind of confused. And then last Monday night at county council meeting, you know, they're arguing about it. Larry McKellen, who I probably agree with. I mean, my dogs more than I do Larry, but he said something that made a whole lot of sense. He said, look, folks, and I know Larry, and I could tell he was saying something without saying something. He said, look, folks, I'm asking you to delay this vote. Give me 2 more weeks. And there's already 2 weeks before the next meeting. Give me another 2 weeks. Let me do some work, because I don't think you all want what could be there. And someone in the background was heckling him. And he said, you know, I'm just saying, give me a couple more weeks, because you all keep talking about the golf course and the this and the that. And now we know that the shellfish and the big clothes and yeah, blah, 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 blah. Give me a couple more weeks, because you all aren't talking about these 166 houses. You all aren't mentioning that. Give me some time and let me see what we can do here, because I think what you want, this was key, what you want is nothing to be done. Absolutely. Well, folks, now look, that doesn't even make sense. Mr. Trapiano, or whomever owned that property, or 5 acres right across the way here, whoever owns that, has by right development. Means they can develop it however it's currently zoned, as long as you follow the steps and the procedures. It is what it is. We're facing that here in Pritchardville. Well, but the county's completely flip-flopped on that. But anyway, so he's saying you want nothing done. And a lot of folks, that's right, with pitchforks in their hand. That's not going to happen. Folks, I'm telling you right now, nothing going to happen would take probably $70 million of someone buying the land back from LVO. And if you have $70 million, and I'm just making that up, he probably would say, see you later, Beaufort County. I would. I'd probably do it for half of that after paying 18. Give me 40, boom, I'm out. That's not going to happen. I really, really doubt that will happen. So, Larry McKellen is on to something. But wait, something just starts eating away. And when something eats away, you can't let it go. You got to keep thinking and asking, man, what is it that I keep going back to? And we may have stumbled on something that allegedly may involve possibly 2 of the Beaufort County council members, possibly allegedly involving a dozen or more pastors and preachers on St. Helena, allegedly something possibly about a promise, and now a very large middle finger and knife in the back to the residents of St. Helena Island. We've reached out. This network has reached out to Elvio Trappiano, and we're waiting to hear back from him. We have invited him to come on this show. I would like to have a one-on-one show with just Elvio Trappiano. I want to hear what he has to say. I want to hear the rest of the story. I want to hear, was there anything promised? Was there anything discussed? Was there any advantage that possibly was agreed to by others that now is being turned away? If this is what I suspect it is, my, oh my. This will end up making you laugh, cry, shake your head, and cuss all at the same time as this comes out, as only the House of Cards can make it happen. More on that. I hope that Elvio Trappiano hears this and calls back soon so we can get that show scheduled. I want to hear from the horse's mouth, because I do not believe the county is being fruitful, forthcoming. I do not believe that some folks on county council are telling the whole story. I want to know. And I want to know who it is, and I want to reach out to them and give them the opportunity. Hey, what went on? What went on with all of this? Why is this happening? Maybe my hunch, maybe my stumbling is false. You know, maybe it sounded good at one time, or at least in my brain, but it's not in reality. But as we move forward and we talk and converse and read, it still comes back and back and back that possibly something was going on with that to give false hopes to, were false hopes given to the purchaser? Were false hopes given to the Gullah community? Were false hopes given to the county? I don't know. If we hear from the horse's mouth in front of a camera with the tape going and it being recorded, all of a sudden, now the truth can come out, as only we can make it happen on Beaufort County's House of Cards. Until next week, we will see you. Take care, America. God love you.